I'm Mileswy. If you're a fan of the ARPG genre, there's a lot of titles you probably know of already that have seen their ups and downs over the past few years. However, through it all, you may have heard of a small little game known as Path of Exile is an ARPG developed by the studio Grinding Gear Games, and if you already knew about it before watching this video, we both know you've heard one thing. It's hard. Really hard. Maybe too hard. Perhaps so much so that it's not even worth trying. And for the most part, that's what people online might tell you is the case. But I'm here to tell you that those people are wrong. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say that Path of Exile is actually not that difficult. Okay, so, obviously that's a bold claim to make. After all, if the game wasn't actually difficult, why would it be so infamous? Is this video just clickbait? Well, I certainly hope not. Let me explain. You see, in my opinion, Path of Exile is not difficult because it is actually hard. Instead, the issue is that it seems difficult because there are many systems that individually are fairly simple, but are all introduced to the player at the same time, and then are not well explained. So I hope in this short video, I can go over these systems and break them down so that you can also see how simple they really are. And by the end, maybe if you've always been too intimidated to try the game, you might even be convinced to give it a shot. So before we begin, let's quickly discuss why this video is being made. After all, with Poe having been around for so long, surely there must be other content creators who've made beginner's guides. Well, about that. Just like the game of Path of Exile, the content around it is a little bit intimidating to get into. This is in large part due to the fact that most people in this game who are making content for it already have thousands upon thousands of hours devoted to the game. Because of this, a new player guide to them is about getting those players to reach the endgame and teaching them what they'll need to know by the time that they reach it. Because for them, the endgame is the only part of the game they know or care about anymore. On the other hand, due to their thousands of hours spent in that endgame, a lot of people see the story as an afterthought, something to be sped through quickly and ignored. This guide, however, I will be ignoring the endgame. Instead, all I want to do is teach you about the core essentials of the game, so that you can find your own way through the campaign. After all, if you don't have fun on the way to the later parts of the game, then you'll never get there in the first place. And once you do complete the campaign and reach the endgame, that's when you'll know if you're ready for some of those bigger guides. Because of that, we will not be talking about Path of Building. Too often, creators will recommend it as the most essential element to gameplay for a newer player, because they are already familiar with it. For a newer player though, Path of Building is an absolute nightmare to navigate and utilize, and personally, I actually quit the game the first time my friends tried to get me into Poe because of being forced to use Path of Building. Similarly, we won't be covering build guides. It's a common consensus among content creators to insist players must follow a build on their first playthrough, but I feel like that takes too much of the excitement away from a player. Sure, on your second or third playthrough, a build guide can better prepare you for speeding through the story and endgame, but starting out, it just turns the game into a boring, choiceless walkthrough, like turning on the metaphorical bumper rails. To this day, I still don't use build guides most of the time, except to help me get an idea of what passives may be useful to grab occasionally, and I consistently can complete all of the game's content. However, if following a guide helps you feel safer, there's no shame in that either. Play how you want, and just have fun. Just don't let other people tell you that you have to play the game the way they say. Anyways, with all that set up aside, let's push on and teach you how to take your first steps within the lands of Rayclast. Upon starting the game for your first time and pressing the button to create a character, you'll be given two important decisions. Firstly, you'll need to choose what league you'll be playing in. Leagues are like seasons in other games. They're large updates that provide new content, balance changes, and often a fresh new economy. As a brand new player, It really doesn't matter what league you choose. However, if you intend to engage in player trading at all, you should play in the current league, which at the time of this video is the Mercenaries League, which just started. I highly recommend this as it will give value to items you find and let you buy others that you don't. What I don't recommend though is playing a hardcore character when starting out. Things in this game will kill you very often while learning the game, and losing all of your progress each time is a quick way to lose your interest. The final little check marks down here are for Solo Self-Found and Ruthless. SSF completely disables all player trade and forces you to play the game functionally like a single player game, while Ruthless slows down your movement dramatically, lowers loot drop rates, and removes many movement abilities. Even more than hardcore, I highly discourage Ruthless when new to the game, and it should really only be used to change up the formula after you're used to the base game. After selecting your league, you'll be presented with your biggest decision. Who should you play as? Path of Exile as a game is actually a largely classless system, so choosing one class over another will never lock you out of items or abilities. Instead, certain classes just get unique perks that can allow them to specialize into certain playstyles. Going into all of these separate perks would honestly be beyond the scope of this video. But truthfully, you should just go with whatever character calls to you. Any class can complete the entirety of the campaign, and you can always make a new character if you aren't vibing with your current one. After picking your starting character, you'll be dropped on the beach of Rayclast, this world's fun little corner of hell. Talking to your first NPC, he gives you a weapon to use before quickly being dispatched by a very forward companion. Following your swift reprimand to an unusual display of PDA, you'll receive your first skill gem and shortly after your first support gem. These are key items that tie into almost every element of gameplay in Path of Exile, and may be the most essential thing to know about going in. Oftentimes, these are also the most confusing part of the game for new players, so we're going to spend a bit of time discussing them. When you get down to it, the system of skill gems is extremely simple. Gems fall into one of two categories: active gems or supportive gems. Active gems we call skill gems, and are basically your abilities in the game. Support gems are, as their name implies, used to support your active gems. Gems primarily come in one of three colors: red, green, and blue. Red gems require strength to use and usually are more melee focused or physical in nature. Green gems require dexterity and offer a wide variety of capabilities, often related to projectiles. And blue gems use intelligence, and most commonly are related to magical abilities. On any piece of gear, you can have what are called gem sockets. These, just like the gems, usually come in red, green, and blue. In any empty socket on a piece of gear, you can insert one of your gems of a matching color to equip it. There are also white sockets that allow gems of any color to be equipped, but these are fairly uncommon. Slotting in an active skill gem into your equipment will allow you to use that skill from your hotbar, regardless of if you put the gem into your weapon or not. You can also put support gems into any gem sockets on gear that match their color. However, by themselves, support gems don't actually do anything. Instead, a support gem must be placed in the same piece of gear as an active gem, and the two must be connected by what's called a link. Support gems will not provide any benefit to abilities they are not actively linked to. Support gems also often have specifications for abilities they will or will not work for. The easiest way to know if your gems work together is to have an active skill gem equipped on your gear and to mouse over the supportive gem. You'll see a list of your currently equipped abilities that the gem will and will not work for. You can also hover your mouse over any gems on your equipped gear, and it will highlight the other gems on that gear that they are supporting or are supported by. Keep in mind that any color of support gem can still support any color of active gem, so go crazy mixing your colors if it feels right. Each active skill gem can be equipped with as many support gems as you have available sockets that are linked together. On chest pieces and two-handed weapons, this can equal up to 6 sockets, so 1 active gem and 5 supportive gems. Support gems can drastically increase the power of abilities, but do come with an increase to their mana cost, so keep that in mind if you intend to beef up your main move with several supports. Once again, remember, active attacks and abilities can be put into any equipped piece of gear and will still deal the same damage. It can feel nice to put your attacks on your weapon, but if you have an extra linked socket available on your helmet, it will still work for your attack and allow you to add in one extra support gem for a potential large boost to your damage. Finally, and this is very important, skills gain experience when they are equipped. Upon gaining enough experience, skills will also level up, increasing their effects and stat requirements. However, you must manually level up skills by clicking on their plus icons on the right side of the screen, or within your inventory at the bottom. Almost always level your skills whenever able, as skill level makes a huge difference to damage output. After equipping your new skill gem and using it to do some casual recreation of The Walking Dead, you'll eventually find that you're probably running low on health and mana. By pressing the keys 1 through 5, you can activate your potion flasks located on the bottom left side of your screen. Flasks come in many forms, from health and mana potions to utility vials that can grant you speed and other stats. However, all flasks share some similar properties. Firstly, every flask has charges. Charges are basically how much liquid is currently in your flask, and whenever you use the flask, you consume some of this liquid. Flask charges are refilled upon entering a town, but also will be gained upon killing monsters. Because of this, you should feel free to use your health and mana flasks whenever you're getting even a bit low, as the charges you consume will literally be refilled by the blood of your enemies. In the process of slaying those monsters, you'll probably also get some gear dropped on the ground. Gear comes in the form of weapons, armor, and accessories. Weapons can either be one-handed or two-handed, and come with a wide variety of options. Armor comes in the form of helmets, body armor, gloves, and boots. All armor comes with base stats called implicits. These are defensive stats that are based on the type of armor that's dropped, and the stats that are required to wear it. Strength gear provides armor, dexterity provides evasion, and intelligence provides energy shield. Some gear requires multiple stats to equip, in which case the defensive stats of the item will be a split of the stats required to wield it. So for example, a dexterity and intelligence piece of gear will give both evasion and energy shield, though lower amounts than the single stat item. These three defensive stats make up the core foundation of almost all defenses in Path of Exile, so let's quickly do a rundown so you're familiar with them. Armor provides damage reduction to the physical damage you receive. Most monsters tend to deal primarily physical damage, so it can help a lot to prevent incoming damage from them, but won't do anything when taking hits from elemental damage. Evasion then is about not taking damage in the first place. As you raise your evasion stat, it will increase your odds of avoiding a hit entirely. Evasion can be a good way to not have to heal as consistently, but it can result in you taking bigger hits when you're not expecting them. Finally, Energy Shield does as its name implies. It provides you with a shield of energy. This shield operates similar to other games across many genres. Taking damage reduces the shield, and avoiding damage for a few seconds lets the shield recharge. Energy Shield is nice as it lets you soak a few hits without having to waste potions, but it might result in you having to play a bit more passive overall. Over time, you'll get an idea of what kind of gear works well for your character. However, feel free to mix and match as your stats let you, and kind of try a little bit of everything. As you level up, you'll find better gear, and you should always be upgrading to help keep you strong enough to handle wherever you're at in the story. On the discussion of gear though, we do need to cover one more thing. You may have noticed as you kill some mobs or even the first boss of the game, Hillock, that some items have their names in different colors. All gear in this game is separated into rarities, and this affects the stats the gear can come with. Normal items come with no additional stats and have their names in white. Magic items have blue names and can roll with up to 2 random stats. And finally, rare items have their names in yellow and can roll with up to 6 additional randomized stats. Items that have any rarity above normal must be initially identified by using a Scroll of Wisdom. This consumes the scroll and reveals the stats of the item, allowing it to be equipped. You can find Scrolls of Wisdom on the ground as you play, but they are also the early currency of this game that you'll get by selling items to vendors. Scrolls of Wisdom, as well as a few other currency items such as the Orb of Transmutation, are also used to buy items from these vendors as well. There's one final rarity of item as well that I didn't mention. These items are known as uniques, and have a dark orange name tag. Unique items always come with specific stats, and oftentimes will have passives that are, wait for it, unique to those items. Uniques are much rarer than other items, and you'll likely only see a handful of them during your initial run through the campaign. They can range from generally useful to entirely build enabling. However, some items can be actually useless or even detrimental to your character, depending on what they do and how you're set up. Just like with random stats, make sure you read the descriptions on these items before choosing to equip them, as just because they're more rare does not make them better. Phew! We made it through all that. That was a lot of information, but as I mentioned earlier, it's all fairly simple stuff. Thankfully, now that we're past all of that, surely there's nothing more complex that will require any level of in-depth explanation. Alright, fine. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The number one thing that seems to scare most people away from Path of Exile. The skill tree. Where other RPGs decided it would be a good idea to implement a skill tree, Path of Exile and the psychopaths working at Grinding Gear Games decided that they'd rather have a skill forest. And just like an actual forest, it can seem quite intimidating to navigate, and can leave you feeling nervous that you may have gotten lost on the wrong path that your friend Greg assured you was a safe route. Due to the size of this monstrosity, a lot of people take one look and decide this is the right moment to say no thank you and hop shit from Path of Exile completely. However, just like we discussed earlier, Path of Exile is actually not that difficult. And like the monster outside the window as a child that was just a branch scraping the glass, the passive skill tree is not actually that scary once you understand it. The passive skill tree in Path of Exile is divided roughly into 3 sections, with the top of the tree relating to intelligence, while the left and right are divided into strength and dexterity, respectively. All classes start in different locations on the tree, but share the same overall tree. So you could start as a witch, but if you wanted, could move into the duelist section and grab some sword and bleed related passives. The tree itself is made up of different kinds of nodes and clusters of those nodes called masteries. Every node requires a single skill point to acquire regardless of the effect, but must be connected to a previous node that you've already acquired. Small passives provide the least amount of stats and are usually placed between larger nodes to get small bonuses along the way. Notable passives are the big brothers to the small passives. These nodes are visually larger and often with more detailed art, and will often provide higher benefits than smaller nodes around them. As you move around the skill tree, you'll find clusters of these small and notable passives. These are called masteries. Every small and large passive within a mastery cluster will be themed around the same types of passives. So within a life mastery cluster, you'll almost always be receiving extra maximum life from all of the passives within it. Additionally, after acquiring a large passive within a passive cluster, you'll be able to assign an extra skill point to get one of 6 unique passives from that mastery. Finally for now, we have keystone passives. Keystones are some of the strongest passives in the game, but also usually come with a severe downside to compensate. Things like Chaos Inoculation, where you become completely immune to chaos damage, one of the most dangerous damage types, but your health is set to 1, meaning going forward, your entire pool of health will only be made up of energy shield. Be careful when grabbing these keystones, and remember to read them so you know what risks you might be getting yourself into. And that's really all there is to know about the passive tree. It can seem daunting, but really it's just all about grabbing things that sound nice and seeing how they work. Overall though, my number one recommendation is just this: zoom in. It's easy to be intimidated when you have hundreds of options, but instead, just focus on the ones immediately on where your character spawns. Just grab the nodes that sound nice for now, and whenever you come to a crossroad, take a peek around your immediate area to see if anything looks good. If you're using a sword, go for a sword mastery cluster. If you deal physical damage, go for a physical damage node. Just make sure you're grabbing some health nodes along the way as well, as even though it's fun to kill things quickly, dying over and over can put a real damper on gameplay. You'd be shocked how far just picking up 1 or 2 clusters of life or energy shield passives will go. If you stuck with me this far through the video, congratulations. We went over a lot of stuff in as short of a window of time as I could manage. There's a few more things I couldn't fit in earlier that I'll quickly go over right now, and then we're done. So from here on out, we'll be doing the rapid fire section of the video. While the game starts you with the basic attack skill equipped, you can change this to be move only by clicking on the ability on your hotbar. Mana issues tend to be resolved quickly due to Flasks, and skills deal much more damage than this attack, so it's recommended to remove this option as soon as you are comfortable to. Until very late game, there's almost no penalty for dying, so don't stress if a boss takes you several deaths to complete. If you do find yourself dying frequently though, invest in health and try to find gear with resistances to lightning, cold, and fire damage. You can view your resistances to these elements in your character sheet by pressing C. Try to keep them close to 75%, which is the max, and check them occasionally as certain key moments in the campaign can lower them. In every town, you'll find various NPCs and vendors to trade items with. The items they sell will rotate each time you level, so check in frequently if you're needing new gear. These NPCs will occasionally also have quests that they can give out to the player. Quest rewards can be many things, but are most frequently new skill gems and extra passive skill points. It's a good idea on your first run through the campaign to do as many of these quests as you feel up to. If you get several options for skill gems from a merchant and aren't sure what to pick, don't stress. You can buy all skill and support gems that you've been offered so far from the second page of whichever merchant in town sells potions. In Act 1, that's Nessa. Early on, you'll get a Quicksilver Flask from a quest. This is extremely useful as it lets you gain a significant boost to your move speed for getting around levels, and I highly recommend keeping it on your flasks for the entirety of the campaign. Gold can be used to respec your passive tree via one of the NPCs in town. If you ever feel like you made the wrong choice, it's fairly cheap to swap up your skills. Throughout various maps, you'll run into many different odd gameplay encounters. These are called League mechanics, and they're mainly sprinkled throughout the campaign to give you a bare bones idea of how they operate to prepare you for when they show up in the late game. Feel free to engage with them as much as you desire, but don't worry about focusing on them. As you go through the campaign, you'll encounter Trials of Ascendancy. These are short little areas with traps and puzzles. Make sure you do all of these that you find, as starting in Act 3, doing so will let you pick your class's Ascendancy. Ascendancies are sort of like subclasses, which allow you to get more specialized perks for your class and focus even further into a playstyle. You can view the list of Ascendancies on the official Path of Exile website, which I'll link below. Just don't get too caught up worrying about which one you pick, as you can always swap later down the line. Gold is basically never used to buy items directly. Instead, currency items are dropped throughout the campaign, which traders will deal in. Usually, these are orbs, such as Orb of Transmutation and Orbs of Alteration. Make sure to keep your eye out for these, as they're very important for later on, and specifically Chaos Orbs are very valuable as they are what people use to trade for items. Finally, on the note of finding those items, there's one last thing to cover to wrap everything up. When I started making this video, I swore I would only include things within it that players could accomplish within the game. Too many people are quick to recommend websites and apps to help with getting into PoE, and I personally think that scares new players away as it becomes work they have to do before they're allowed to play the actual game. However, with all that said, if you've made it this far into the video, I do think I have to recommend getting a loot filter. Loot filters are a very simple to add, convenient tool that hides useless loot on the ground and highlights important items. The process for adding them can take literally less than a minute and is done through the official Path of Exile website, so no shady downloads or tedious installations. Simply log into your account on Path of Exile's website and then scroll to the bottom and click Item Filters. Once here, click on Never Sync Regular Softcore and on the top right click Follow. Now go back into your game and navigate to your settings and click on the Gameplay section. Click the drop down and the filter should be displayed here. Simply click it and remember to hit the apply button at the bottom. That's it. If later on you find there's too many items still on the ground, you can come back to the filters list and get higher tiers of NeverSync's filter as they update it regularly and are the community's go-to for item filtering. And that's it. I'm not joking, that's everything you'll probably ever need to know to beat Path of Exile's entire story campaign. And if by the end the game has properly sunk its teeth into you, I promise there are a lot of resources for you to dive deeper into it. If this video does well enough, I'd love to help contribute to more guides for some of the later systems in the game, such as crafting and individual league mechanics. I really love this game. It can be challenging at some moments, but more often than not, it's deeply satisfying and rewards you for your time and effort. I feel like one of the most important things for the game's long-term health is being able to have new players understand the game and stick around to play it without feeling overwhelmed. If you think I succeeded at that, I'd really deeply appreciate if you would give this video a like and share it with anyone you know who could also make use of it. If there's anything you're unsure about, feel free to leave a comment below and I will reply to the best of my knowledge. And finally, I know it's stereotypical to ask for, but if you enjoyed this video and want to see more guides like this in the future, a subscribe would go a very long way for me in knowing I'm doing things right. This was my first video, and it took a lot of time and effort, but I hope it was as worth it for you as it was for me. I hope to do it again soon. Thanks for coming on this little adventure with me. Stay safe out there, Exile.